Hey everyone, this is Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology, and today we are going to continue our exploration of this week's Pluto transits by looking at Venus's upcoming square to Pluto. Yesterday, we took a look at the square from the Sun to Pluto, kind of broke that down. We looked at 5 themes to watch for. Today, we're going to do the same thing with Venus in Libra square Pluto in Capricorn. So that is our agenda for today. Before we get into it, like and subscribe today if you haven't done that already. Appreciate that. Leave a few comments in the comment section. If you have a story to share this week with either the Sun or Venus squaring Pluto, use the hashtag grabbed. It'd be great to collect some stories on this planetary transit. It's a part of my channel. Use the hashtag grabbed. One of the names for the planets in ancient astrology were grahas, which means grabbers, also to grasp, to understand. So I like to collect stories from people as you notice the transits popping up in your life that we're talking about here. Use the hashtag grabbed and tell us about what happened, and then I might share one of those in a future storytelling episode. You can also email us grabbed@nightlightastrology.com. A few other things. Don't forget to check out bhaktywise.com. Two of my friends and mentors from the Bhakti tradition, who I still remain in touch with, even though I'm personally not involved with the tradition in a formal way any longer. They are offering a class for beginners on the Bhagavad Gita. So if you want to check that out, it is on bhaktywise.com. The class starts coming up on November 5th. It's 12 weeks long. It's called Unlocking the Mysteries of the Bhagavad Gita. As someone who loves the Bhagavad Gita and has studied it with them, I can tell you that they're very good teachers, especially for people who are just looking for an introduction to the text for the first time. So check that out. It's by donation too, so it's pretty easy to get involved with. All right, well, the other thing that I'm doing, as you guys know, is I'm promoting my new class, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic. Now, we have about 150 need-based tuition contracts still available with about a month left to go. So I would highly recommend that you check that out and sign up now if you want to take advantage of it, because the likelihood that they will go is high. So I say that initially just in case you're ready to enroll, but you're sort of on the fence about it. Need-based tuition is there for anyone who, for whatever reason, may not be able to fully swing the cost of the program due to financial constraints. You're on a fixed income and there's not a lot of wiggle room. We get that. So check that out and see if it might help. Or if you have something more serious going on, like you're a single parent and you're really strapped, or you're on disability, or you're on a fixed retirement income or something like that. I'd love to try to make sure that people are not priced out of the program. So be sure to check that out. That's at the bottom of the page. If you guys check it out down there, you'll see tuition assistance apply now. We also have a payment plan. You can stretch it out over 12 months. And for all of our other clients, the early bird payment is also there to help you out. If you go up, you can learn more about the program. It tells you everything that the program includes. Starts November 12th, works on Saturdays, 2 to 3 hours each class, 30 classes on the year. We also have a webinar forum where there are tutors that staff of tutors that answers all of your questions always within a day on any of the material we're studying. We also have breakout study sessions led by my tutoring staff. So a lot of support built into the program. It is a fantastic immersion into ancient astrology. It sets you up to be able to read birth charts for other people, if that's something that you're interested in doing. And also for people who just want to develop their love or hobby interest in astrology at a deeper level, we welcome you to come check it out. I'm really excited for this new group of students coming up, and I hope you guys will be enjoying some of the sample readings I've also been preparing to put out, so you can see some of what the live readings in my classrooms look like. So you'll be seeing those on the channel as well here or there. Anyway, so today, again, we are looking at Venus's square to Pluto. We looked at the Sun's square to Pluto already. I'm going to put this up on the screen, and let's have a look at it first. Will we get the giant arrow? We got some kind of arrow. I don't know. It just popped up right away. I didn't even do anything, and it just popped up. I feel like my arrow, like my little drawing tool, is possessed. But it all started when Mercury was retrograde in Venus's sign, by the way. So my technical drawing tool has some kind of glitch or something. But well, one thing that's interesting here is that we have 2 planets essentially going through a square to Pluto at the exact same time. The Sun first and then Venus, but it's pretty consecutive. It's, here we have it coming through, early morning East Coast time on Thursday, October 20th, but you'll be feeling this the rest of the week, easily into the weekend, even as the two planets are separating as Venus is separating from the square to Pluto as well. So that's the deal right there. You've got the Venus conjunction with the Sun also as a cazimi that's starting to form. We'll be talking about that as well. It's an empowered moment for both the Sun and Venus, in a sense, as they're hitting Pluto, which can be a planet of a tremendous release of power. Not always easy, not like power as in like I have the power of Grayskull, like He-Man. It can be that way, but it can just be a very powerful encounter that both of these planets are about to have this week with Pluto. And then the cazimi is another very empowering moment for Venus. So I think that we could almost think about the list that we're looking at today from the standpoint of all of these themes being greatly empowered, so like Venusian themes being strengthened quite a bit because Venus is also moving into the conjunction, the synodic cycles conjunction with the Sun. So here are 5 themes to watch for today. And I think that we'll start right here. So number 1 with Venus and Pluto, you have the goddess of love, desire, attraction, beauty, women, the goddess and the feminine meeting the lord of the underworld, of all that is subterranean, primordial, primal, instinctual, intense, deep, and dark. And so one of the things that can happen is that I phrased it like this: a love catching fire. And by that, what we mean is multiple. Let me read you something that comes from Saint Therese, who is a saint who kind of pioneered an approach. It's almost like Catholic mindfulness, but at any rate. Now, this is a Catholic sister sort of speaking. The good God does not need years to accomplish his work of love in a soul. One ray from his heart can, in an instant, make his flower bloom for eternity. In times of aridity, when I am incapable of praying or practicing virtue, I seek little opportunities, mere trifles, to give pleasure to Jesus. For instance, a smile, a pleasant word when inclined to be silent and to show weariness. If I find no opportunities, at least I tell him again and again that I love him. That is not difficult, and it keeps alive the fire in my heart. Even though this fire of love might seem extinct, I would still throw little straws upon the embers, and I am certain it would rekindle. Now, again, for me, set aside if you have any interest in Christianity or not, I have loved that quote for a long time, and was actually surprised to recently find that quote, someone mentioned her to me, and I thought, do I know her? And then I looked up some of her quotes and I found that quote, and I have long loved that quote, but didn't really know who it was from, didn't really know anything about her. So I thought I would use it because it was kind of one of those synchronistic things. But what I take from what she's saying is that, sometimes you're in big love, right? And it doesn't matter. I'm not talking right now. It could be God. It could be your lover. It could be your passion or your hobby. But just in general, the idea that what do you do when that big, intense, burning flame of love and desire is not so strong? Where do you go to seek the reignition of that flame? Like, how does it happen? And what I really love about this quote, and it's the reason that I've always liked that quote, is because she says it's just little things. If you do little things, little gestures of love, it's like you're throwing little pieces of straw on the embers of a fire. And surely enough, if you keep doing that, it'll catch fire. And then when you're going through a dry patch, it'll come back. So let me give you an example from when I was in my MFA program in creative writing. I was in the process of trying to come up with my thesis, which in my MFA in creative writing was a creative project, so like a book. And I would write things and I wouldn't like them. And then I had this ritual where I had a little gas, or not a gas grill, a charcoal grill, and I would put the manuscript, I would print it out, put it on there, and burn it after I was done, as a ritual of releasing it, especially because I wasn't writing anything that I wanted to hold on to, and that it was really frustrating in a sense. But I would just kind of give it up. And in that letting go of it, rather than being frustrated, it became like a ritual for me to let the frustration go in the fire. And then I would return, and I just thought, I'm just showing up. I'm just showing up and writing. I'm just showing up and writing. And I wrote all sorts of stuff and would burn it and write it and burn it. And I know, and it wasn't that I kept some of the stuff, but I would manifest a physical copy from print it off and get a physical copy and burn it. But then I would return and I would write something new and like that. And all of a sudden, one day, the first chapter of my book appeared. And I knew it. I knew right away, this is the beginning of the book. It just felt that way. And what I can tell you is that, and I didn't know this, I didn't have this quote in my mind at that time. I didn't yet know it. But one of the reasons why it resonated with me is because there's been many moments like that in my life, and I'm sure you can relate, where the passion is just gone. And again, she's talking about the passion for God and her spiritual life. But what I've always liked about that quote, again, is just the principle applies no matter what you love, whether it's your parenting, or it's with your spouse, or it's with a sibling, or your parents, or, whatever. I was talking to a woman the other day who's caretaking a sick family member, and she was saying, I just have to show up every day. And some days it's better than others. Some days, you're doing the small things, and all of a sudden I'm overwhelmed with love for my parent. And then, it's like, it's not so hard. But this is a natural part of loving what we love, is that it doesn't always, sometimes the flame is very small, but you have to keep throwing small things on it, and a lot of the times we choke it out because we try to throw a big log on a dying fire. It just smothers it. It's not strong enough to catch that whole big log. If you throw small things, then it is. So with Venus squaring Pluto, especially Venus and the Sun squaring Pluto, I wonder about something catching fire again. But I wonder if this week we could also be aware of the need to feed small things to the fire so that it can take off. Just an image that really has been speaking to me a lot lately, because it's also true for me as an astrological, reader or content creator or teacher. If I'm constantly just making little gestures of love toward the gods, the oracle, toward the subject of astrology itself, then all of a sudden, there'll be a week where maybe I'm not feeling as inspired, maybe the content feels a little dry, and then boom, it takes off. So you have to keep feeding things in little acts and gestures of love, and that devotional spirit eventually always reignites things again. That's a very Venus-Pluto kind of moment. How many times have I seen clients who Venus-Pluto dynamic comes up and they rekindle the spark in their marriage? Now, of course, sometimes there's other themes like, the end of a relationship can be very Venus-Pluto, but don't underestimate the power of a love catching fire. Number 2, we fear what we are attracted to and are attracted to what we fear. Now, this came actually from a somewhat recent Bhakti Wednesday video that I had done. And someone had asked, why is it that we are attracted to what we fear and we fear what we are attracted to? And they're not identical, but they're similar. And I, had an answer then, and I talked about it a little bit. I'll repeat some of what I said in that video. But I would also say that it is a very appropriate subject to be considering right now. Venus and Pluto, for example, often associated with what we desire that is considered taboo. Now, that could be, for example, time, place, and circumstance, right? It could be that at a certain point in history in some country, that marrying someone from a different tribe, village, ethnic, or religious background was considered taboo. So taboos change, and they're different according to different people in different places. So I'm not trying to set out to define what taboo we're talking about here, but just that Venus square to Pluto can be about the attraction to what the attraction to what we fear. Oh, that's inappropriate. It's bad. It's wrong. What will people think? Especially Venus in Libra, which has Venus in Libra tends to be very concerned about social consequence. So what are we attracted to, and what kinds of social consequences or ramifications do our attractions have? So that's something to watch for. But there's also, we fear what we're attracted to because what we are attracted to may be the source of transformation. Like, I remember being attracted to my wife and being like, oh boy, like this is not someone to date, this is someone to probably spend a life with. And I knew that from the first time I met her, and it was scary in a good way, but like scary. So because I knew that so much transformation would be involved in like falling in love and getting married. And both of us had gotten out of relationships previously where heartache was involved, long-term relationships, and so it's natural to fear what we're attracted to, because what we're attracted to will often involve sacrifice, death, and transformation, none of which is easy, some of which can be very destabilizing, even if it is ultimately beneficial or good. We may also fear what we are attracted to because what we are attracted to may get us into some kind of trouble, and we ought to stay away from it and listen to our fear. But each person has to listen to their inner voice of guidance to know the difference, and to know when is it time to be courageous or permissive with myself, and when is it time to listen to that fear and create a boundary or avoid a temptation that's unhealthy, whatever it may be. We're also attracted to what we fear because there's something unknown in what we fear, or something in what we fear that sometimes, not always, I'm not trying to make a rule out of this, but just in some cases, we are attracted to things we fear specifically because they have some part of us that we have not yet integrated or recognized as an aspect or dimension of our own psychology, our own psyche, our own soul. These are the kinds of things that tend to come up when Venus is square to Pluto. Number 3, vanity and the pursuit of power. Venus in Libra with Pluto in particular is like the seduction of power. It is the Venus is in, if you guys have seen the new Game of Thrones series, I've been calling it Soap of Thrones because it feels to me like they took Game of Thrones and turned it into kind of like a soap opera. Maybe that's harsh. I've not been loving it. But anyway, I mean, I'm glad to be back in that imaginal world, and so I shouldn't be complaining. It's nice to have fantasy and story. But the hand of the king is a position that is essentially one who is an advisor, counselor, diplomat to a person in power. Well, Venus in Libra often has diplomatic aspirations, but like the hands in the Game of Thrones, there are often cutthroat competitions to become the hand of the king or to have that position of influence. And so you think also about what we do to be noticed or what we will do to be recognized. I'm here to do something benevolent, peaceful. On the surface, it looks like it's good intentioned or virtuous, but maybe I'm aiming for some greater position of power. And it can be very opportunistic, in other words. It can be vain, self-centered, opportunistic, and flat out power hungry. But it can mask itself in the sort of Venusian, the gamesmanship and the virtue savvy that is sometimes associated with this sign. Remember, this is the exaltation of Saturn, Libra. So Saturn was a god associated with feigned appearances and some level deception and also popularity. Interesting that Saturn is a very diverse planet, something we spend a lot of time talking about in my programs, that I've spent a lot of time lecturing about at conferences. So vanity and the pursuit of power, potential dark side or shadow of this. Now, also, let's put it this way. If you're going to get things done, you have to work with power and people in the world. leverage, power, opportunity, resources, and it's a bit of a game, and we all have to play that game on some level. And so just the need to play that game, and even when it's a bummer and you kind of have to play it at work, you have to be strategic. There's a reason that one of the great spiritual texts of the world is called The Art of War. Now, that might sound funny to say about Venus and Libra, but remember, Pluto in Capricorn is in the sign of Mars's exaltation, and Libra is naturally the place where Mars is in its exile or detriment. There's an inherent tension in any Venus ruled sign with Mars and any Mars ruled sign with Venus. So some of those things are a little bit more, they might be happening negotiations in a boardroom. They might be happening in emails, and there may not be fists involved, but watch for the power struggles and a little bit of a competitive dynamic around some of this. Number 4 would be love and death. Well, let's just be honest. This is a deal breaker for relationships. Venus comes together with Pluto and people split up. Or the relationship has to transform by going through some kind of crucible. And that might be a good thing. It might, all relationships need to evolve. We go through personal crucibles. Of course, relationships are going to go through them too. Why are we so afraid of them? I was saying last night, before I was making this, it was our wedding anniversary. And my wife and I were talking, and we were reflecting on how, we really don't fight like when we were first dating. We had more fights. And, I would say they weren't like, they were just arguments, let's call them that. And so now we don't really do that as much. And we pick our spots. We're much better at picking our moments. When is it really worth it to have a fight and when isn't it? And I was saying, like, it's the you realize when you're spending your life with someone, I'm sure people out there who are married for a while or have been long-term relationships can relate. You just realize, like, you got to play the long game here. Some things that you might have thought were worth fighting for or about in the first year, 10 years in, you're going, there's more things that you let slide, and because you recognize that you need to let things go. But you also recognize a lot better when there is a fight that's actually worth having, because you recognize it as important for the two of you, for the relationship, so that you stay together and don't grow apart. Some fights are very important to have, but there's a maturity around Venus and Pluto, I think, at times where it's like, this fight is worth having because I love you, and that's cool. I think that's a sign, that's a mark of maturity, that we're able to, like, sometimes Venus and Pluto we make room for them, So, but it can be like love and death, love and darkness, love and evil. Venus and Pluto are sometimes associated with things like rape or violence towards women or domestic abuse or divorce, and like really terrible, like divorce, going to court and fighting with each other in divorce proceedings or something like it. It can be nasty like that, but it's also about the crucibles of love in our lives that we have to go through that can be very constructive. Number 5, our desires as our teachers. This kind of relates back to what we were saying about being afraid of what we're attracted to and attracted to what we fear. There's an emphasis placed in many world religions on the renunciation of worldly things and desires. And we can understand, I think, theoretically, even if you're not into religion, you can understand why, because a lot of people they follow their desires to the point where, it just walks you right off the plank. And, whether it's sex, drugs, rock and roll, there are so many stories about humans following their bliss, right into the deep end where they may not be able to swim. And so there's something about not just world religions, but the history of psychology and therapy and so many different modalities that have said, be careful, your desires are healthy, but they can take you into unhealthy spaces. There's also something to be said about the way in which religions repress some of our relationship to our desires. Many, not saying religion itself, but people who are on a religious path, and this, I reflect on this myself, and I have been a lot lately. You can easily say to yourself, anything that is of the body or the world is bad, and then you can start to repress aspects of who you are that are actually healthy and good and not in need of restraining because they're not taking you out to the deep end. They're just a part of being alive and being human. They're to be celebrated and even recognized in a spiritual sense as manifestations of the divine beauty in the world. So what I like to think of as the quintessential sort of highest teaching of Venus and Pluto together is that whether your desires are taking you into the deep end or whether they're keeping you true to yourself and who you are in your most divine nature, your desires are your teachers. They help us in a sense. They help us walk a path and understand ourselves and our shadows at some times, and at other times they help us understand our true beauty and the true pleasure and the true attractiveness of life. But we all do that dance, don't we? We all go through the like, ooh, how did I ever date that person? I can now see what I was attracted to it's been my teacher. Oh, how did I get lost in this thing? Well, I was really desiring that, and look at where it got me. And then on the other hand, how or why did I ever neglect that part of myself that wanted something, that desired something, and I neglected it? And now that I'm letting myself just put my hair down and go dancing, how good do I feel? And how much more do I see the divine beauty in the world? So, it's like, it's not easy. It's an inner journey. No one can walk it, but each of us individually. I've never seen anyone successfully lay out a blueprint of exactly what desires, exactly how much are healthy at what times. And people who do that generally don't seem to be having very much fun, So at any rate, that's what I've got for you guys today. I hope, as always, that you find this to be a healthy, helpful addition to your daily journey. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe, share your comments. You can find a transcript of any of my daily talks on the website, nightlightastrology.com. By the way, watch for scammers. Sometimes people on the YouTube comments or on Instagram are impersonating astrologers' accounts, including my own at times, and will email you and be like, hey, I've got a special feeling about you. Let me give you a reading. Don't fall for it. The only way you can ever book a reading is actually through my website, nightlightastrology.com. If you want to book a reading there, that's cool. I'll never contact you and ask you if you want to do a reading through a DM or a YouTube comment or something like that. So just be on the alert. I don't want any of the people who watch this channel to get ripped off by someone. Don't forget, the new class starts November 12th. I would love to have some of you in there. Like I said, we're like around 150 or so need-based tuition scholarships left. So apply. We're trying to make sure that we get that word out. And we're also, frankly, we're trying to avoid a crash of like 75 applications in the last week, which too often has happened, and then it's overloaded my staff. So trying to get people ahead of the curve a little bit there. All right. Anyway, that's what I've got for today. Hope you guys are having a great week, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Bye.